Today we're going to be doing like a flow diagram with fractions where they give you a starting point and you've basically got to fill in the blanks in the chart. Okay, so here we can see that we're working with sixths. So if we had to look at that as like a chart, a little pie chart, it would be a chart separated into 6 different sides. So basically three. Let me just draw that a little bit better. So like that, three sides or 6 sides, but 3 on each of the sides of the circle, if that makes sense. Okay, so basically what that means is if we have a look over here, we're just adding fractions, right? So here we have 1/6 plus 2/6. Okay, so that basically ends up being this sum over here, right, which will become 3/6. So that would be your answer, 3/6, right? Okay, 3/6 plus 3/6 would give you 6/6. Okay, but now we need to remember that 6/6 is like this in a pie. Okay, all 6 pieces are colored in, which means that it's one whole pie. So 6/6 is actually equals to 1. Okay, so that means that here we'll write 1. Then we'll have 1 plus a 6th. So we'll have 1 and 1/6. Then we'll have 1, okay, and 1/6 plus the 2/6 over here, 2/6. Okay, so an easy way to work this out if you struggle with this 1 being here is to separate them into bubbles, okay? So you would go like, okay, the 1 stays in its separate bubble because it's not a fraction. Then you add the fractions, okay? So the fractions would add up to 3/6. It's not a whole number, and so it needs to stay in its own block because they're not like friends. They have to just stay separate. So you could write it like that. Okay, so that's what they would want you to do here. So here you would just then write 1 and 3/6. Then you'd have plus 2/6. So you would have 1 and 3/6 plus 2/6. Okay, so you'd separate the 1 into its bubble, the 3/6 and the 2/6 into its bubble. 1 we know will stay in its bubble. 3 and 2/6, they are obviously fractions. They'll be in the same bubble, so that will be 5/6. Okay, now it's just going to be written as 1 and 5/6. So here you'll have 1 and 5/6. Now we have a little bit of a challenging thing here because we're adding 2/6. So it will be 1 and 5/6 plus 2/6. So again, if we separate them into our bubbles, 1 will still be in its own bubble. Then we'll have 5 plus 2, which will give us 7/6. But now we need to change this to a whole number, right? Because if there's a pie of 6 and we've got 7 pieces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's a seventh piece here, but it doesn't fit into the pie. So we know we're going to make one full pie. So that will be 1 in its bubble plus the separate. So we have the, if we had our bubble here, we'd have 1 full pie plus 1 piece of the pie. So 1/6, right? Because this is the 6th of a different pie. Okay. So if we added the 1 and the 1 together, because now they stay friends, they're whole numbers, so they want to be friends again. So it'll be 2 and 1/6 because of the fraction not being their friend, okay? So it'll be 2 and 1/6, okay? Then we'll have 2 and 1/6 plus the 1/6 that they've given us. Now we've got to add it together, okay? So the 2 will be in its separate bubble. The 1/6 and the 1/6 will be in its separate bubble. So we'll have 2 and 2/6, right? Because in their separate bubbles, they still stay separate. So here we would write 2 and 2/6. Okay. Then we have 2 and 2/6 on our paper here. And we're adding 4/6. So you'll say plus 4/6. Okay. Again, we're going to put them in their bubbles. 2 will be in its own bubble still. 2 plus 4 will give us 6 over 6. That becomes a whole number, like we said, because it becomes a whole pi. So that would be 2 and 1, because that will become a 1. And our answer will then be 3. So for our answer here, we'll have an answer of 3. So now we have 3 plus 5 over 6. Okay. Again, then they're separate bubbles. They're not really friends, so they're just going to be written as 3 and 5 over 6. Okay. Then we are adding 1 over 6 to the 3 and 5 over 6. So we have 3, 5 over 6 plus 1 over 6. Again, if we separate them into their bubbles, the 3 will be in its own bubbles still. The 5 plus the 1 will give us 6 over 6. That becomes a 1, so it'll be 3 in its bubble, 1 in its bubble. 3 and 1 realize that they can be friends, so then it will become a 4. Okay, so 4 plus 3 over 6, so we have 4 plus 3 over 6, okay, because we're adding this 3 over 6 now. That will become 4 and 3 over 6, so that's what we're going to write over here. Okay, then we have 4 and 3 over 6 plus 1 over 6. So I'm just going to use this one here already, plus 1 over 6. We separate them into their bubbles. Okay, so we have 4, okay, plus 3 plus 1 will give us 4 over 6. Do you see how in their bubbles they're not friends? So it will just be 4 over 6. Okay, so now we have 4 plus 4 over 6. So 4 and 4 over 6 plus the 4 over 6 that we're adding. Okay, so if we separate them into their bubbles, we will have 4 and 8 over 6. So we know that if we have a pi of 6, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, these are two pieces of pi from a whole different pi. So this makes one pi. So our 4 and our 8 over 6 will become 4, okay, plus the one whole number, plus the two pieces that we have left over, which will be 2 over 6. The whole numbers become friends, so it'll be 5 plus 2 over 6, which will just give us 5 and 2 over 6. Okay, so we have 5, 2 over 6, 5 and 2 over 6 plus 5 over 6 will just give us 5. Hold on a second, not 5. So we'll have 5 and 2 over 6 plus the 5 over 6. Okay, those added will give us 5, and then in our little bubble we'll have 7 over 6. Okay, that means we'll have 5 in its bubble, 1 plus the one extra piece of pi that we're missing. That will give us 6 and 1 over 6. So this one will be 6 and 1 over 6. 6 and 1 over 6 plus 2 over 6 will give us 6 and 3 over 6. But you can also simplify to say 6 and 1/2. And the reason why is because 3 over 6 in our pi, if you color in the 3 over 6, right, that's half of the circle. So 6.5. And it's that easy. It's just adding fractions and then making it mixed fractions.